What's up, everybody? I'm still sick. It's it's kind of gotten better. It's not gotten too much better, but it's getting better, I think. Which hopefully it does, because I have to drive 8 hours tomorrow. And so, um, today I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm still feeling under the weather, but after yesterday, I was like, you know what? I feel so much better if we just still talked about some psychology stuff. So I'm going to push through it and I'm going to still talk about psychology stuff because you know what? That's what's going to give me the energy to be able to like not talk about it for the rest of the day and I'll feel fine about it because something about just doing gaming streams ain't sitting right with me. I don't know what it is. Call it toxic productivity, call it whatever you want. I just like I I just feel like I can't get away with 100% ignoring the reason that I even started streaming in the first place, which was to share psychology stuff. I feel like I need to talk about it at least a little bit. I need to contribute something, even if like I'm kind of dead. Um, and so I thought something really easy to talk about would be something that is a little further from intellectualism, and that's my own experiences. And so I'm gonna give you guys a little backstory on me, and we'll get into some Kanato lore. Um, and yeah, so we're gonna talk about a lot of my life experiences. Um, and because I think I'm an important example of this, but we're gonna talk about political radicalization. And so I don't think that I was like literally radicalized. Let me look up radicalization. Radicalization meaning the action of causing someone to adopt radical positions on social issues. So like I wasn't radicalized in the sense that I was like violent, but I'm talking about the fact that like the process of the internet taking away all the nuance of politics and like forcing you to either be like hard left or hard right. Um, just for a little, just as an overall disclaimer, this like I'm actually going to be talking about why I think like why like I used to be like hardcore conservative, and that both is not me saying that like everything conservatives do is okay because like they're sympathetic, and it's also not me saying that actually like oh thank god I was unbrainwashed, like I was unbrainwashed. I'm just saying like I noticed what made me have such strong opinions and I didn't personally connect with that. This is not me saying that conservatism as a whole is a result of brainwashing, and this is not me saying that it is not a result of brainwashing. I am just making simple observations about a time in my life where I was very susceptible to being pushed very hard in a singular direction when it came to politics. So as long as we got that out of the way, because I know that like liberals are gonna hear this and then they're gonna be like, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, I used to go down the alt right path. It's fine if like you agree with that and everything, and like you have your experiences, whatever. But like it's like, oh, thank God someone got unbrainwashed, because that sort of stuff is stuff I'm gonna talk about and why that's bad to say stuff like that on the internet, in my opinion, and why it led to further radicalization from me. And I want conservatives out there to be like if you are like a radical conservative, I don't want you to be like, oh, this is why I should see, like I'm sympathetic, so I'm allowed to like hate gay people. I don't want that sort of stuff. So I'm literally just pointing out that like this is for both sides. Like I know people who are radicalized onto like the left side and now they're a little bit more moderate and stuff. And lastly, I don't think moderate means nuanced. Like I think that like if you so sure, it inherently is more nuanced if you want to argue that, kind of, but like there's such thing as like a radical centrist, like someone who like there's so little nuance because they refuse to identify with either side. That's still a form of like ego taking shape. Like you should just believe what you believe regardless of what it ends up identifying you as. Just be critical of what you think. Um and so I'm going to talk about like kind of my own experiences. And so basically, for reasons I'll keep a little private for now because I don't think they're relevant. Like I was going through like a really tough time in high school, and and basically I felt incredibly alone in general. Like it was an awful time for me. I did not enjoy it. in the slightest. And I basically, and that unfortunately was during the 2016 election. And I, and because I always thought politics were cool, like even when I was a kid, like 13 years old, watching like Family Guy, and like they said, like, like I dream of Republican town. Like I was like, what's a Republican? And then like I like, but like, you know, my dad was kind of like, you know, like you'll figure it out when you're older and stuff. And he was right. I don't think that was the right time for me to do that. I don't think I should have been getting into politics at 16, let alone like 12. And so like I was always interested in it, but now everyone was talking about it, so I got into it. And so my first exposure to that sort of stuff was like some like Hillary deleting emails sort of memes, right? And then like, you know, everyone in my school hates Trump. Like everyone in my school hates Trump. And so like because I think I can't pinpoint the exact moment my algorithm changed, but I think it was like probably I saw like a Hillary like bashing thing and then I liked it. And then they showed me like a Trump is good thing. And I looked up this video, and I think it was some video by like PragerU or something, and it was like why conservatives are smarter than liberals. And you know, there's me being like an incredibly insecure high school student. I was like, oh well, I don't want to be dumb. And so I clicked on that video, and it like explains like, oh, did you know that like conservatives are like 5 IQ points higher and stuff like that. And I was just like, oh, and like I like like taking statistics and like not critiquing them at all, like that could be true, but like, you know, like it's almost implying that like if you're a conservative, it's because you're smarter, not because of like class systems or education systems or anything. It's like, oh no, see, this is why the conservatives are like objectively right. And this was like kind of the start of my pipeline into the conservatives are right thing. And then they did this really smart thing. Like the conservatives did this really, really intelligent thing. They started out the process of kind of indoctrinating me by telling me the playbook of the enemy team, aka the liberals. And so they told me, if the liberals get mad at you, they're going to get very emotional. They're going to call you things like racist, sexist, misogynistic, even though you haven't even touched on those things. All you say is that you like a conservative candidate or something like that. And then they're going to yell at you. They're going to get very emotional. And this is because they are divorced from logic. And I see a lot of this in like the way a lot of honestly, I'm gonna kind of call out a lot of people right now with this. A lot of the divorced dad archetypes will talk about like women, where it's just like there's no point in trying to understand women because they are just crazy and stuff. And then it's like I think of this quote from Cobra Kai where it's like, it's no wonder you've been divorced 3 times, John. Like it's just like, but they're immediately, they already gave me an excuse to not listen to counter arguments. And I think that was the real ace in the hole, because what that did was that it convinced me that I was morally in the right because I was the one willing to have a conversation, because I was taking the moral high ground, quote unquote, by not speaking out. You know, like I wasn't like speaking in a specific kind of way, you know? I wasn't speaking in a specific kind of way that like implied that I was emotional, because I hid my emotions. I was in the right, because that means that you can't prove that I have emotions. And that means, and emotions are bad. Those are the opposite of logic, right? So like you can't have emotions, because then that means you're wrong. That's what they love to do. They love to be like, you're like, oh, they're like, you're getting emotional. You're getting emotional. Logical fallacy. Like they love saying this sort of stuff. I know, because I was one of them. Like, and do you guys realize how like intellectually lazy it is to like say like, oh well, our side is on average more intelligent. Our side is more logical because we're not yelling when we talk, which means that less emotions affect us, which means that we are correct. Which, by the way, psychologically, completely incorrect. Your brain is never more logical than another human being's. Your emotional circuitry is always firing at all cylinders. There are people who are emotionally aware, and there are people who are not emotionally aware. You can argue that some people's emotions are more volatile, but like even then it's like, what does that even mean? Like it's just like someone might have like You just have like an alignment where you're like, oh, am I going to listen to my emotions? Am I going to not listen to my emotions? And what that basically amounts to is either am I going to be blind to my emotions or am I going to recognize my emotions? Because either way, your emotional circuitry is always affecting your decisions and your logic. That's why no human being is purely logical. But we're all also like logical because we just take the data that we have, but also we refuse to acknowledge data that we don't have. So like that's like the fundamental pro and flaw of human beings. Um and so, you know, and so like I would be listening to the arguments of like liberals and then like I would notice the things that they warned me about and I would be like, "Aha, they warned me about this." And so I would put on the facade like I was listening, but what I was doing was and this is a huge problem we have in our society, like I was listening for my chance for a rebuttal. I was not actually listening and trying to understand what they saw because this is another thing. This is the most dangerous thing that an ideology can do to you. This is this is what I'll call like the most dangerous thing an ideology can do to you. They convince you that you perfectly understand the opposing view. That's what I think is the most dangerous. It was the most dangerous for me. Also, I'm not on the verge of crying. I'm just sick. So, like, even though I'm talking about emotional topics, when I cry, I'll be open about it. But, no, like, just so y'all know, I'm not. I'm just sick. Um, and so, they convinced me that I knew the entire playbook of the other side. And what that did was it incentivized me to prioritize rebuttals and not listening. Because, like, hearing them and, like, dissecting their argument in real time in order to find a counter argument is not active listening. It's just not. Because, like, think about when you felt like you were seen and heard in your life. Like, when do you feel like people are listening to you? The times where you don't feel like people are listening to you is when they are just waiting for you to slip up. Or when they're waiting for you to when they're waiting for the aha gotcha moment and stuff like that. And this is what really prevents it on both sides. Oh, I'm not going to listen to this conservative because they're racist, sexist, homophobic. Because like that's the problem. That's also the problem is that like they will like both sides will be like, if someone behaves like this, it means this. Whereas like no behavior really like means anything when you like actually think about it. Like it's like and that might sound like a very radicalized statement, but like think about how many problems in communication and just society in general are caused because like we like to assume that we know exactly the reasons people are operating the way that they are. And you might still believe this. Like, and to me, like, you know, just because someone supports Trump does not mean that they're racist. That might be like a hot take. But like, you know, like I know a lot of people who like Trump and like they actually believe the exact opposite. They believe that like whether or not you think this is correct or not, like they are not like, "Oh, Trump is racist, so I'm going to vote for him." And they're not like and they're actually like, I think he's less racist than even people like Hillary or Biden and stuff like that. And like it like, but do you see how like then that is supposed to be the point of contention? You should move away from, well, you're racist and stuff like that. So like we immediately assume that like this is the problem is that like because like people can do this, but I don't think this is the right way personally, just with all my own biases intact and everything. But this is just my opinion. I could be totally wrong about this. Like I don't think it's a good move to be like, okay, these people are worthy of regular conversation, other people are worthy of just straight up scorn because like they're too far gone, they're the devil, they do this, they do that and stuff like that. I think everyone we should talk to like they're normal people because like here's the thing is that like when I was very conservative, I like said a lot of things. I still think to this day I'm not like what most people think of when they think of like a radicalized conservative. Like I was not like saying slurs everywhere. I was not like campaigning against like pride rallies and stuff like that. Like I was literally just like watching a ton of Ben Shapiro videos and Steven Crowder videos and trying to like you know trying to debate all the libs and all that sort of stuff. Like I was like, that might be a very watered down, but like that's my version of it because it was so far removed from what I felt like as a person, but I felt like it was my only path forward. So like, just so we're clear on that. I'm also not saying that people who do that are beyond helping, or that like, and even saying that, a lot of my problem with people was that like they would treat me like I'm sick. They would treat me like because I'm not a liberal, like, oh, you're like less than human, or you're like, we're gonna treat you like, oh, like poor baby got brainwashed and stuff like that. Or it's just like, you're not, like, once again, you're not even listening to me. Yes, I'm not listening to you, so it's warranted. But like, I think in order to change the world, we need to show people kindness that like they don't deserve. Because there are a lot of times where I was acting like a huge asshole and I just didn't deserve people to help me. And like I was still down that pipeline and stuff. But like I've talked about this, and like I I didn't deserve people to show me happiness, to show me kindness, and then like when people did, that was the only time I started listening to people. Because I lived my life on defense. And what do you do when you live your life on defense? You stockpile as many supplies as you can, aka all you do is you sit online and you watch a million videos that tell you why you're right, and then the only reason you watch videos why you're wrong is so you can point out the logical fallacies that the previous videos had taught you. But this is why there's such a disconnect in society, because everyone's operating on like different information. Dr. K talks about this super well. Like all our feeds are different. And so before it was like, I saw the same information as you. My perspective was this. I saw the same information as you. This is my perspective. But now there's so much information out there, and so much of it is fake, and so much of it is skewed, and so much of it is emotional and takes advantage of your emotional circuitry, that now everyone's operating on different information, which is why there's such a disconnect. So, you know, like it's like whenever you watch a show and two characters who know different information are like, they're like, you see like their wires aren't like, they're getting their wires crossed. Like there's something not connecting. And like, that's how we're treating these political conversations. It's like just trap card after trap card after trap card. It's literally just like, oh, did you know that I support Trump? Oh, you activated my You're a racist card. And it's like, actually, you activated my, actually, Biden's more racist card. And then it's like, actually, you activated my, have you seen this? Have you seen that he didn't release these documents and stuff? And then it's like, oh, actually, here's my trap card. He only didn't release those documents because the liberals did, like, it's just like this exhausting rat race of like, I'm going to try and get to a point where like I can say my view, and like you can't have a counter argument. Like I'm gonna keep going until like we reach a point where like you have nothing left to say. And that's like exhausting, right? Like that's just, oh my gosh, it's just straight up exhausting to deal with something like that. And I'm not writing a lot on the board. It's because like I want it here in case I need to, but like I don't feel like writing something right now. I feel like I'm doing fine. And like, so what this would do is it would create a cycle of like doubling down and doubling down and doubling down. And it was just like, it was exhausting. I was not happy. Like, no matter how smug those conservatives may seem, no matter how much they may seem that they are like, haha, I'm in your face and stuff, how happy do you think a person like that can possibly be? Like, and this is a huge like thing that really like made me upset, is that like that was one of the main things that like once again Dr. K talks about how like why the manosphere is going towards alpha males. It's because like that's the only culture right now that tells you that like your life is actually bad. In that same way, conservatives were the only one acknowledging that like I was like alone, and I was like they were like against me and stuff like that, because I was going through stuff that was out of my control in a very dark time in my life. And then because I had the audacity to say that I simply prefer Trump because all I knew about Hillary was that she deleted some emails, and to be told that just based off of that, everything about me was dismantled down to one thing. You're a bad person. You have white privilege. You're a straight white male. How much could life possibly hurt you? How much could life possibly hurt you if you're a straight white male? Because I have it worse. I have it worse regardless of anything else that's going on in your life. Regardless of anything that's going on in your life, I am confident that you don't have it as bad as I do. That you have not had to work harder. I am confident that you have not gone through more loss and pain. You have not felt more isolated than me. Everything about your life, you're not allowed to complain about. You're not allowed to do that. And that was like actually combined with all of the sneaky psychological things that both political sides do to their sides and stuff like that. Like you guys need to understand this, right? Like, because like you are creating more past me's. Like you are literally creating past me, because like I've been talking a lot about like why conservatives are doing it wrong and everything like that and stuff. Let me tell you what liberals are doing wrong. Okay. Like this is what, like, I'm going to speak very hyperbolically and from the heart right now. Like this is what you do wrong. You will call them intolerant, and then you will refuse to speak with them because what do you tolerate least? Intolerant people. What does that make you? It makes you intolerant. I'm not saying you should tolerate racism. I'm saying you should at least speak with them. I think every human being needs to be spoken with, because, and it's like, how could you say that? How could you say that? Isn't that the same as like validating their experiences? And I'm just like, yes, because I'm not saying they deserve the kindness. I'm saying this is how you progress and get them to your side. If there's ever a chance that they were on your side, this is how you do it. You actually have a conversation with them, because like all you do is you sit on this moral high horse of like, I'm right and they're wrong, because you're so scared of the violence that a lot of them are actually perpetrating. So I'm not saying you're entirely wrong. My point is that your response, you equate the situation with a completely disproportionate response. You're like, no, well, this should work. We should be calling people out. When has calling someone out on the internet ever actually changed their mind in like a genuine way? When's the last time that you just didn't like bully someone into publicly agreeing with you? But they probably, you see all these people who like silently vote for Trump. Like, do you really think that they're not going to do that if like you bullied them into publicly agreeing with you? Do you really think they're going to do that? So many people I knew never knew that I was a conservative. Because you know what happened? I saw so many posts online that would treat it like it's obvious to be a liberal. Like all my friends were posting online and saying things like, it's like, just like, if you're a conservative, unfollow me. If you're like, and like, think about how terrifying that is to like not be part of like this wider movement and think that you are totally justified for believing what you believe because all the statistics, all this, everything's on your side and you were only there. And then you see these people saying, if you're not on the side that invalidated him during his darkest moment, then you're a bad person. So what you're saying is that you guys just want them to roll over and take it. You guys just want them to be like, yeah, they're intolerant towards us. They refuse to have a conversation with us. They're hyper emotional. They did like all these different things. And then you just want them to like, oh, well, we yelled at them because they're assholes. And so they should listen to us. Like, do I really need to explain why that's a bad strategy? I'm not saying you have a moral responsibility to change the world. I'm not saying that you have to put your anger aside and do that. I'm saying that like what's frustrating to me is that all you people will do is yell at people. That's all you do. You just yell at everyone. And then like, what do you expect the response to be? When people yell at you, what's your response? What do you do? Like, if someone's genuinely trying to understand you, how much more likely are you to try and understand them? Versus if they're just yelling at you that you're a bad person and they're bludgeoning you with this moral righteousness until you stop. This is why I think this is such a nuanced topic. Because, like, I'm saying it in very hyperbolic ways, but, like, I'm like, liberals, you're like right about a lot of things in my opinion. But like, I'm not surprised. Like, I don't look back at my conservative era and think like, oh, what an idiot. I actually think the exact opposite. I look at the way the internet is and I say, no wonder I turned to them. Do you guys get that? Like, it's not like I'm not like I'm not sitting here being like, oh, wow, I was so much less intelligent and now I'm more intelligent. That's the standpoint that you guys take, and look what happens. It turned people into people like me. I don't know how else to explain this. Like, if you want to spend your life going out and yelling at people who probably deserve it to some degree, because I'm not saying I didn't deserve the hate, go ahead. But like, don't yell at them and then be like, why is no one changing their minds? Oh, I live in such a cruel, hateful world. Oh no. I told you I'm just going to be mean. I told you I'm just going to be hyperbolic. I'm not like, this is the most emotional topic for me. And so I'm not going to like hold back this stuff. And once again, if you think that my emotions somehow make this argument less valid, then like, go back to your Ben Shapiro videos. Like I'm just like, that's just not how the mind works. It's literally just not how the mind works. Like, think about like how you would probably trust me more if I was like saying this all very, very calmly, and like how kind of stupid that is. Like, that's just kind of a stupid thing. Because emotions are not the opposite of logic, despite what everyone will tell you. They're not. They are exactly logical, actually. Every emotion has a complete logic to it. And that's why they drive our decision making. And whether or not you choose to believe that you're a quote unquote logical person, you're not, because no one is. Your emotional circuitry is always firing. Literally always is. So what this does to people is that it takes their because this is something that I totally agree with. Like, when people are I'm going to talk about something that like legitimately might like lead to people like thinking that I should be canceled and stuff like that. But I'm saying that like not as someone who agrees with this movement, but I understand how they got to this. And I get that even saying that I understand can lead to people like screaming at me. But like, when people responded to Black Lives Matter with White Lives Matter, and then like, I'm literally like, I think I agree. I completely agree that like they're missing the message. They're missing that and everything like that. But like, as someone who was in such a dark place in my life and then was told repeatedly, well, you're not a minority, so you don't matter. Like, I've literally been told things along those lines. Like, even without like the emotion of it painting my view, I vividly remember people saying things like that, where they're just like, well, like, you're white, you have nothing to complain about and stuff. Like, think about like how unhappy the people who are saying that probably are. Think about how invalidated they probably feel. They know that that's like crazy. Like, I would argue that like somewhere deep down they know that it's like so petty to be like, yeah, but white lives matter too. Like, it's just like, yes, but like that's not the point. It's like literally like if you have like a breast cancer march, it's not like you're over here being like, well, actually testicular cancer is also bad, right? And please tell us that it's also bad. It's like, yes, of course, we're not saying that. But like, my point is that like we see that and we point it out for the ridiculousness that like once again it rightfully is. But that's the problem, is that like that's another example of like, I get it. Like, I get it. I understand what it's like to have that crazy of viewpoints. And I'm not, and once again, it's so weird because I'm both telling you you're wrong, but also you're wrong, but also everything you believe is totally valid on both sides. I think liberals are totally right in some ways, and they're both entirely wrong, and conservatives are really right in some ways, and they're totally wrong. But I'm also I'm telling you that, so it's like, oh, well, those things cancel out, so what's the point? And then I'm over here telling you also those people deserve hatred, and also you shouldn't hate them. Like, also you shouldn't like lambaste them for having these viewpoints and stuff like that. Because like, let me tell you, as someone who's found inner peace, as someone who's found a lot of happiness and joy and and someone who's really detached from my ego in a lot of ways. Like like I like that was legitimately the most unhappy time of my life. What should have been one of the happiest times of my life was one of the most unhappy, because all of that was a response to the world assuming that I was bad. I always this sounds so ridiculous, but um but this like this quote, and I think, like, once again, I think this applies to I think this applies to everyone. Like, I think this applies to everyone at some point in their life, because this is literally a quote from Zootopia that made me cry constantly, especially in therapy, because this is how it felt when people would call me evil. Because later I ended up internalizing that. And I was like, yeah, if I'm a bad person, I'd rather be bad and right than like wrong and good. Like, I refuse to be ignorant. I refuse to roll over and let this world tell me that, like, I need to change. Even if it makes me a bad person, I'm not going to change. Like, it's from Nick, and it's if the world's only going to see a fox as as shifty and untrustworthy, there's no point in being anything else. And that's how I felt. I thought to myself all the time, if the world's just going to see me as evil, corrupt, and privileged, then there's no point in trying to be anything else. And to everyone, that sounds like the very basis of evil. It's like, oh, look at the like I've gone through look at me. I've gone through this and I haven't given in to despair. I haven't done this. It's like, yeah, cuz you're not the same person. Do you guys get how this isn't like a moral thing? It's like an emotional thing. Like, no one has the power to deal with overwhelming emotion and logically decide that they are just not going to feel that emotion anymore. That just doesn't make sense. If you ever do think that you did that, then you fundamentally misunderstand the human mind. Like, you just do. Like, this is not like a formal lecture. This is like me telling you guys my experiences as like a person, not like as like a future therapist and stuff. This is like my story of how this stuff happened. And like, and so like, all I would do every day was I would prepare my arsenal to fight against the people who I believed were plaguing this country. Now, before anyone takes that out of context, I am not talking about any specific race. I am talking about like liberals in general. I thought like the liberal ideology was a poison, and you can even see people echo this sentiment nowadays. Like, they like, think about how hurt you need to be by something to literally consider it a poison. It was a poison. It was terrible. And I thought that like, and I was despairing every day because I was like, oh, woe is me. I think that like, I'm the only right one in the world and everyone else is wrong. If only they were more like me. If only they were more like me. The problem is that people who think that you should be like them are like the most insecure people in the world. Like, the people who are, because like, they don't have the confidence to accept that other people are just different than them. That's too scary. Like, they have to be wrong. Because what is the implication if someone else is different than you and not wrong? It means you could be wrong. But like, the truth is that like, I just believe that we're a product of our karma. Like, we're just like a product of like every cause and effect relationship that the universe has had since the beginning. And I think and I think to everyone who's like a liberal out there, who's like fighting the wars in the trenches, who are like calling out all these racist, sexist, homophobic people out there, like, I fully respect your right to yell at people who have wronged you, who are perpetuating violence and all that sort of stuff. But I'm telling you, not from a statistical data point of view, even though I think it would probably prove me right. I'm not talking about from a statistical data point of view. I'm not talking about a therapy point of view. I'm talking about me as like a human being. You are creating more problems than you are solving them. We're always taught as a kid that like standing up to your bullies and like doing all this stuff is like, that's the way to win and stuff, is to like stand up for yourself, tell them off, tell them why they're a bad person and stuff. But there's just a tiny little flaw with that plan. What happens when you tell someone they're a bad person? Think about this, guys. I want you to think about what it's like growing up with no sense of identity and like growing up very lost in the world. And then someone comes along and they tell you, "Oh, hey, you're a bad person." And they just keep saying that over and over again. You wonder who you are. "Oh, you're a bad person. Oh, you're a bad person. Oh, you're a bad person." What do you think is going to happen to that person? What ideologies do you think they're going to respond accordingly to? They're probably going to do one of two things, which leads them both down the same path. They are going to reject everything that you are as one last final attempt to save their ego. And they're going like, because for me, both of these kind of happen. They're going to reject you as one final call for and say, "No, you are everything that's wrong. You're wrong about everything. I'm right about everything. Let me show you why." And then they look up a million videos every single day of why they're right and why they're wrong. And it feels so good to be just understood. It feels so cathartic to know that, oh my God, they don't even know how stupid they are. They're so dumb and they don't even realize it. It feels so good. But also it comes from such a miserable place that it doesn't matter. So you can go down that path, or you can just internalize it. And this is what a lot of bullies have done. They're just like, "You know what? I'm a bad person. You're right. What are you going to do about it? What, are you going to stop me? You going to stop me? You're the one who's been bullying me and calling me a bad person. Oh, and now you want me to stop? You thought calling me a bad person would make me stop." Think about any time you've ever been called a bad person. When have you ever actually realized, "Oh, maybe I am a bad person and I should look inward"? No. What actually causes people to introspect? Now I'm going to kind of go back into therapy-ish mode, but I'm still going to be emotional about it. What causes people to introspect? So we have a lot of data for like what's the most effective therapy style, and there's a lot of in my opinion, there's not better things overall. There's just simply more research things. And so like, because CBT is like the most popular form of psychotherapy, at least in the West, like it is the most researched and they're the most quantifiably good. But I don't think that but the more we actually compare them, the more they actually are like kind of irrelevant. What matters is like the difference in therapeutic relationship between the client and the counselor. And so what this essentially means is how much progress a person's going to make is how connected and safe they feel to the other person. And what are we doing on the internet? We are cultivating the exact opposite. We're cultivating the exact opposite mentality. Here's how to hate everyone that has ever disagreed with you. That's what we do. Not genuinely trying to look at it from understanding. Because why don't we do it? Do we just not look at it with understanding because we just didn't think of that? No, it's really hard. Because like, your brain will give you all these reasons why you should yell at them. The anger will be overwhelming. And the bad part is that it'll probably be right. These people probably do deserve to get a swift kick in the ass. But like, I've been telling you guys that like giving people what they deserve is not a good strategy, in my opinion. And that might sound so contradictory because it sounds so water is wet from how much we accept that as a society. It's just like, people like, why did they get that? It's what they deserved. And then we just accept that as gospel. It's like, oh, well, that makes sense. People should get what they deserve. Like, you were born into this world as like a baby with no utility whatsoever. All you did is whine and cry and do all this stuff. And like, what? And like, did you deserve anything? Did you put any good out in the world that you deserve to be reciprocated? No. But why do we take care of the baby? It's because it's the right thing to do. You don't just leave a baby abandoned. And in that same way, there are these people out here who feel so hurt and lost that they are willing to spend their lives on Reddit forums. They're willing to spend their life in YouTube, subscriptions to these websites that are away from all of the censorship media and all this sort of stuff. Like, they are feeling that lost that they can no longer converse with people who agree with them. And you're probably semi the same. And and then we see those people and we see, oh yeah, they're bad people. Everyone always loves a sympathetic villain in movies. Everyone always loves oh my gosh, they're so sympathetic. They did this bad thing, but no, but they had a reason to. They had a reason to. And we're literally like babies with no object permanence. It's just we know logically that this is just my belief. I don't think human beings from any research really are inherently bad. I think violence is learned and hatred is learned. I don't think that we are inherently as cavemen, every man for himself, as a lot of people would like us to believe. I actually think that human beings have evolved to be compassionate tribal creatures. For the most part, there's a couple caveats to that, but I do not think it can just all this tribal mentality can just be explained away with, oh, we lived in tribes and stuff like that. I think that there's a lot of more nuance to it. And so we know that logically the only explanation is that they probably went through something really bad. But what do? We're well, I don't see it. So they're not sympathetic. And then even when they do give it to us, that wasn't even the answer either, because it's just oh, well, you think that this excuses this? Oh, boo-hoo, you went through this. Here's my trauma and I didn't turn out bad. Here's my trauma and I didn't turn out bad. As if we're all comparable. As if we're all the same person. Everyone responds to people think that people will respond to everything the same way they do, as if everything else in their life has been similar except for one specific event. You cannot gauge how other people respond emotionally to things. This is how, do you guys get how you're being, when you say that sort of stuff, you're being the equivalent of a parent who's just don't be depressed. Just don't be anxious. Don't have PTSD. Get over it. Be a man. Do this sort of stuff. Do you guys get how this perpetuates that sort of stuff? You're just becoming your parents. And I'm assuming I'm talking to people my age, but out there, I just hope you guys can see this and how this is manifesting. All you guys do is invalidate people you disagree with. What did your parents do? Probably invalidated you. Because generational differences. But a lot of parents aren't bad people. I don't think people invalidate people because they're bad people. I think that genuinely everyone does think that they're doing right to a degree. Even when you internalize evil, there's kind of this sentiment of well, the world deserves it. And once again, giving what they deserve. But that's I think how you find peace, is to tell yourself, because this is what I told myself. It's just yeah, a lot of the people who made me feel really isolated and alone probably deserve a swift kick in the ass. But you know what? I'm not going to give it to them. Just because we felt alone, just because we felt that. I'm not going to go around preaching you ruined my life, you did this and stuff. I felt so alone, I felt so this and stuff. It's just they were probably hurt and scared too. All they did was see a guy who was saying these things that were brought up to believe is the core of their hatred. So all they saw was the seed of a poisonous fruit. And then all they tried to do was take it out of the ground. And so it's unfortunate for me that I'm that seed, but I have that internal duty personally to break that cycle of karma, of hatred. And I genuinely think when you learn how to have conversations, I have a good video, in my opinion, obviously kind of narcissistic to say, but I think I have a good video on how to communicate with people and how to change people's beliefs, which sounds very closed-minded, but I'm saying how to increase the odds. And part of that is stop trying to convince them of anything. And so and genuinely that's what happened to me. I genuinely when people just gave me a space to speak and then they just spoke and weren't trying to convince me, they were just saying, oh yeah, this is my experience. And I felt safe enough to maybe question. When I was given an environment that was safe enough to question my beliefs, that's when I started changing. That's when I was able, when you're given a space, because this is why therapy is so important. We don't have spaces where it's safe to be vulnerable, where it's safe to be flawed. Everyone has to be perfect all the time. And what does therapy do? It gives you a space where it's okay to be flawed. And that's when you can start to make progress in your life. And what y'all have done is you have created a space where it is impossible to have flaws. You are not allowed to have flaws. Having a flaw is a cardinal sin. You're not allowed to be a normal person. You're not allowed to have any beliefs that may be considered problematic because, like, if you are, you're just a lost cause. There's no point in ever talking about anything with you. You're just supposed to lie over and be told. You're just supposed to change your mind on a dime if someone says you're a bad person. You're supposed to change it immediately. As if that makes any sense. As if that's ever happened to any human being ever. Genuinely internally changing their beliefs. Just because someone said that. So, like, you may change people to your side out of, like, guilt and everything. I see a lot of people who, like, feel like they internalize that belief. But, like, really, how much of a better world are you creating when you do that? Who are you going to change into a confident human being who's like, yeah, I was wrong. Anyways, no, everyone's just like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that I was actually a terrible, terrible, horrible person. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, that's the people I see changing their minds, which, like, they were probably prone to doing that if they have that little of internal sense of self-esteem. Because even then, they invalidate their own emotions because they're like, oh yeah, that was totally illogical of me. I had no reason to do that. I hate to break this to you guys. We have a reason to do everything. Every emotion is logical. Everything you think, not everything you think. Like, your brain has a logic to it. It doesn't mean it's right all the time, obviously, but it works with the information that it has. Your brain is not inherently, like, stupider. You know what I mean? So, like, people need to stop. Like, those are the people who don't make progress in life. It's people who think that there are just blatantly stupid actions. And the people who actually make progress in life are people who just understand that, like, life has a karma to it. Like, this had this effect. This had this effect, which led to this effect, which led to this effect. Oh, okay. Like, the reason that happened to me was because I did this. But now that and it's like, oh, well, even if they realize this, then they're gonna just shirk responsibility and be like, oh, well, life is karma. Life is all cause and effect. I can't control whether I do it. Yes, they can, because now they have the data to show that they did that. That's what I did. I literally, like, once I figured out that, like, it wasn't my fault because, like, life is, like, karmically based, but it is my responsibility to change it now that I have the tools to change it, I just immediately changed it. It virtually happened overnight for me personally. I just let go one day, and I was just like, oh, I actually don't have to live life this way. That's pretty cool. So, I think as someone who considers themselves to be to have been, like, brought down, like, the right pipeline, like the right wing pipeline, I think what contributed most to that was a sense of emotional unfulfillment, which made me need to identify with a cause in general. Like, I was probably, if conservatives bullied me, I would have just done it on the liberal side. Like, if I, like, which would probably increase if I was, like, a minority or part of the LGBT and stuff like that. But, like, I'm not. I'm a straight white man. So, like, obviously, like, I'm more prone to being put down that space. And so, like, these factors are all, like, risk factors. Same as, like, how addictions have risk factors. Like, a sense of meaninglessness, a sense of isolation, being bullied by people of a certain ideology. Like, these are the thing, like, and like, starting out your, like, political or ideological journey with a side that knows how to play the game and knows to just say, like, oh, well, by the way, even if you see yourself starting to agree with this side, don't fall for their trickery. People who know how to play the game like that, all these are risk factors, and all of them coalesced into me turning into that thing that I was. And I'm not saying anyone who's like that now is a thing. I'm saying that, like, like that person is so far removed from how I am now that it's like hard for me to even like comprehend like how that was me. You know, like when you look at past events in your life and you're like, how is that me? Like that's crazy. Like that's like I get that person and I get who they were and everything that made them them, but it's kind of weird knowing that like I'm the same brain and body and stuff like that. But yeah, no, it's weird. But I I can't make anyone do anything, but I hope that you guys like learn how to communicate in a genuine, non-sarcastic, non-confrontational, non-aggressive way, because I think that that's going to bring about change. But I think you essentially have two pathways, in my opinion, because from what I've seen, I've heard people like, argue with me why we need to like call people out and yell at them if they like perpetuate violence and stuff like that. I just don't think it helps personally. I just don't. And like obviously, if you want to say like, well, that's just because you're privileged and you're not part of those communities. Fair, that's fair. Like I don't have personal experience beyond my own personal experience. So like you guys can have personal experiences that contradict me. And that's fair. I'm just sharing what I believe. Is that like I think what changes people who were in situations like me, because I've seen other people who went down the same path who have changed for the same reasons, is to genuinely give them a space where they can be a flawed person, and you don't treat them like they're sick. You don't treat them like a villain. You treat them like a person, even if they don't deserve it in your eyes. Even if they don't deserve it, I think in my opinion, you can either choose the route of justice or you can choose the route of change. And I think what brought me to peace is the route of change. I think people could have dealt out Justice Swift Hammer, and I also think that if they had done that, I'd still be down the pipeline even today. I met a group of people who allowed me, and they disagreed with me too. They just didn't agree with anything I had to say, just to clarify. Like they were just allowing me to do that. And they just allowed me to say my piece, and it was great. And I felt so seen. It was like a beautiful feeling to like be that version of myself and not be on guard. And so yeah, I can't tell you what to do, but that's my experience as someone who considers themselves to have been kind of radicalized at some point. And so, yeah,